We have had discussions with them this week, and we are expecting to see some samples with the revised specifications sent to us.
4,500 people will be tested every day from next week as part of efforts to stop the spread of COVID-19. That's up from the average this week of 1,500. Some testing centres haven't been operating at full capacity this week, according to the HSE, but Chief Operations Officer Anne O'Connor says there'll be more testing from now on.
We are managing community testing in line with the available capacity. That laboratory capacity will increase over the coming week, and we will scale up our community testing. The sites are there. They are able to scale up immediately once the lab capacity increases.
Gardaí say most people are sticking to the restrictions in place, but that it needs to continue. There's mild weather across the country today, but the force is asking people not to leave their home unless it's essential. It says we all need to keep practising social distancing and only exercise within 2 kilometres of our home. Deputy Commissioner John Toomey has also addressed concerns about how checkpoints are being conducted.
In particular, a question has been asked about the wearing of masks, and the advice at the moment is that there is no need to wear masks when conducting checkpoints, particularly where we adhere to the physical distancing guidelines of maintaining that 2 metre distance when talking to people in their cars.
And 3 people have been arrested and €140,000 worth of suspected cocaine seized in West Dublin. It follows a Garda operation in Tala last night, targeting serious and organised crime. The drugs were found after 2 cars were stopped on the N81. A 30-year-old woman and 2 men aged 28 and 37 were arrested. They're being questioned at Rathfarnham and Tala Garda stations. It's 2 minutes past 1.
News Talk Weather.
Thanks to the AA. To help in these challenging times, we've reduced the cost of our car insurance. Get our lowest price at the AA.ie.
Staying dry today with hazy sunshine. There will be some outbreaks of rain later this afternoon though. Highest temperature is 12 to 16 degrees. And now you're up to date on News Talk.
Off the ball. This is News Talk. On this Sunday afternoon, when there's clarity really for the first time this weekend around the Republic of Ireland's managerial situation. So Stephen Kenny, his era started with immediate effect yesterday. Mick McCarthy's era is over. Across the show, we will chat with Kenny Cunningham very shortly. Later on, Damien Delaney, Gary Breen and Dan McDonnell will all be with us. There's a Golf Weekly special coming your way as well. Paul McGinley will be on between 4 and 5 o'clock. At this hour, we'll review the Sunday papers. Mary O'Connor from the Federation of Irish Sport and Brendan O'Brien of the Irish Examiner on the papers today. 53106. We are at Off the Ball on Twitter. Neil Tracy is in the building. Hello.
Hi, Joe. How are you?
Very well. So we'll get stuck into the news of the weekend. The Mick McCarthy, Stephen Kenny situation put to bed. Clear, concise and early decision on the FAI's behalf. And they have decided, in short, to stick rigidly with the contracts, and that is the plan.
Yeah, Joe, so Mick McCarthy's second stint as Republic of Ireland manager is over. Stephen Kenny is now officially in charge of the senior international team. The news broke yesterday on Off the Ball before being confirmed later by the FAI. McCarthy had been under contract until what we thought would be the end of the Euro 2020 campaign. But owing to the extraordinary circumstances we were in, that tournament has now been postponed, and that led to complications around who would lead Ireland in the rescheduled playoff against Slovakia whenever that takes place. So the FAI say both parties came to an agreement that they would honour the exact terms of their respective deals, which stated McCarthy would be under contract until the end of July 2020. But with no games being played between now and then, McCarthy has agreed to end his spell in charge and hand over the reins on a permanent basis now to Stephen Kenny. In a statement, interim FAI CEO Gary Owens paid tribute to McCarthy and thanked him for his professionalism and understanding shown during the process. He says, on behalf of the FAI, I wish to express our gratitude to Mick for his service and commitment to our national team throughout his career, and particularly in his second spell as Ireland manager. We wish McCarthy and his staff well, and we thank them for their hard work in this European Championship campaign to date. Former Republic of Ireland manager Brian Kerr joined us on the show yesterday as the news broke. He says he doesn't expect Stephen Kenny to be throwing the under-21 players straight into the action, but he does anticipate a more attacking outlook.
In 2003, you took over the Republic of Ireland national team. What is your advice now to Stephen Kenny regarding getting to know the senior players in the first team and what he needs to do to assimilate himself quickly with the Republic of Ireland?
Oh, I don't think Stephen needs, huge advice from me. He's his own man. I know Stephen quite well. I signed him as a player going back many years ago. And over the years, we've stayed in touch a bit for various reasons. But he doesn't need a lot of advice from me. He's had great success at the levels he's worked at. And players who played for him respect him very, very highly. But look, I think he'd be doing sensible and practical things over the next while. He'd be making contact with the players who are in the squad currently, who have been playing regularly in mixed team, and he will be having conversations, I'd imagine, with them in relation to assuring them that he likes what they've done, but he still will need time to make his own mind up. But I'm sure he'd be having a conversation. He'd be also putting staff together. That'd be a very important one. I wouldn't be surprised. I think Nathan referred to the possibility of the staff being enlarged. I wouldn't be surprised at that, or the addition of one or two people to the staff, I would think.
Yeah, we're expecting Stephen Kenny's backroom staff to be confirmed today. Keith Andrews expected to join him. He was involved in the under-21 setup. Jim Crawford expected to be the under-21 boss. Robbie Keane not expected to be part of the setup, and they were waiting, it seems, overnight to see if Damien Duff was available.
Joe, do you mind if I jump in here? Because the FAI actually have, in the last couple of moments, confirmed the appointment of coaches Keith Andrews, Damien Duff and Alan Kelly to Stephen Kenny's backroom team with the senior team. And as you speculated there, Jim Crawford has been promoted to manager of the Irish under-21 side, and he's going to be assisted by John O'Shea. So just to continue with the statement here, Keith Andrews joins new manager Stephen Kenny in making the move from the under-21s, while Damien Duff, who's been involved with Shamrock Rovers and Glasgow Celtic, will take up his appointment on the 1st of August. Jim Crawford worked as Stephen Kenny's assistant manager to the under-20s in their European Championship campaign, and he's now going to be joined in his new position by John O'Shea, who's currently coaching with Reading. FAI interim CEO Gary Owens has said to FAI.ie, the calibre of Stephen Kenny's backroom team is top class, and these are great additions to our senior team coaching staff. Keith and Damien served Ireland so well as players, and their experience will be such an addition to our squad's senior support team. Keith and Stephen have worked brilliantly together with the under-21 squad, and Damien, currently finishing his UEFA Pro licence with the FAI's coach education department, has impressed everyone with his coaching skills and his switch from world-class player to coach. Everyone at the FAA is delighted with Jim's promotion to manager from assistant, and he is a great number 2 in John O'Shea as he takes the next step on his coaching career. And then also on behalf of President Jerry McEnany, the board and the FAI and myself, wish Stephen, Jim and their coaching teams all the very best of luck in their new roles. We know they will do Irish football proud. So that's confirmation that Keith Andrews, Damien Duff and Alan Kelly will be part of Stephen Kenny's backroom team with the senior team, while Jim Crawford will now manage the Republic of Ireland under-21s, and John O'Shea will assist him in that.
OK, very good. That's breaking news, as expected, but confirmed now by the FAI. Mick McCarthy spoke to FAI TV last night. Have a listen.
So, Mick, your second year as Ireland manager is over ahead of time and in very extraordinary circumstances. What are your thoughts today?
Yeah, well, I mean, as you say, Cole, extraordinary circumstances for everybody, actually. With the coronavirus that's going on, the way football's been cancelled, I mean, worldwide. So, the European Championships has had to be done as well. What are my thoughts? I mean, I said in December the 1st, 2018, when I took the job, that I'd be leaving on July the 31st, whatever, come what may. But those discussions were based on us qualifying and then maybe doing really well in the Euros. But I said I was leaving, and that's still the case. Albeit, of course, it's been brought forward because of what's happening worldwide, actually.
It's been a difficult decision and difficult discussions for everyone, and particularly for you because you'd started this job and now you don't get to finish it.
Yeah, well, that's usually disappointing, but I fully understand it as well. I see Aggie O'Reilly is the same, isn't he, with the Denmark coach, who's a pal of mine. He started the same competition and he's leaving now because that is successor was already picked to take over, and mine was the same. It's disappointing I can't finish it off. I think we've had a really good campaign. We were almost there in November when we played Denmark. Sadly, we didn't. And so the playoffs are being pushed back, and I fully understand it. You know, Stephen's been contracted to take over in August, and good luck to him. He'll get a chance now to qualify.
What will you say now, Mick, to your players and your staff?
I've spoken to some of the staff. Of course, I guess the nearest and dearest, if you like, the ones who have come in with me in terms of the football staff, and I'll get around to speak to the other guys. I would just want to say thank you to all of them for everything they've done, for all the commitment they've shown, the professionalism they've shown. I mean, the backroom staff were there when I joined. You know, apart from there's TC, there's Robbie, but Robbie's been involved, Alan Kelly's been involved before. Dave Bowman was involved with me before, of course. So Andy Little, who's the fitness coach, who's been a rip-roaring success with everybody. I've spoken to all of those guys, they all know, and I'll get around the rest of the staff just to say a huge big thank you for the support and everything they've done to help me and to get us where we were, and actually commiserate with them, I guess, that we're not going to finish it.
And for the fans as well, I mean, the atmosphere for that Denmark match back in November was very special.
Yeah, I think, look, if there was a reconnection needed, we certainly got that with the performance of the players, and it gradually got better. Come on, we all know. I look back at the Gibraltar game, the first game in, on an AstroTurf pitch, blowing a gale and an aeroplane taking off at 8 o'clock, when we just scraped through. But we did scrape through, and we didn't concede a goal. And I said at the time, what a horrible game, horrible performance. The only thing was the result, and that is what mattered. And we've lost 1 out of 10, and the one that we lost was in Switzerland away, which, as we've seen with them, they were the best team in the group. It's been brilliant. I've loved being back. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. It's been an absolute pleasure and an honour to do the job again. And I think, you know, I'm leaving Stephen with a healthy balance, to be quite honest.
And for you yourself, you will be back in football.
Absolutely. I've said it all along. I mean, what this does, Cathal, as well, is that it gives everybody clarity. You know, the phone's been going, asking what's going to happen. And to be fair, to the real credit of Gary and Roy, now that they've taken over and made this decision quickly. And I support the decision, because it's only right and fair that Stephen gets his chance in October the 1st. It's kind of bittersweet, but I fully support it, and I'm absolutely staying in football. Going back to the original question, I have no intention of leaving. And what it does do now, with the clarity and that I will be leaving, is I'm back on the market, so I can look for a job with impunity.
And of course, Mick, you go back now to being an Ireland fan.
I do, of course. And I said yesterday to Roy that the one thing I would certainly ask for when leaving is a couple of tickets for next year's Euros when we've qualified, and I can come back and watch and support with all the rest of the fans who, let me please just give them a special mention, who have been wonderful towards me and my staff and the players from day one. The support that I've had and all the staff have had, and we've felt it, you know, all along. It's been fantastic. And I'm glad, actually. I know we didn't win the game, but I think we left, and now we've left, of course, but we left everybody on a high in November looking forward to these playoffs with a great performance the lads produced. So if I can reproduce that then in the playoffs, I might get me 2 tickets for next summer.
There you are. That's Mick McCarthy on FAI TV last night. Classy to the end, it has to be said, and you hope in due course, in a couple of months' time, when there's a full house at the Aviva Stadium, be it towards the end of this year or early next year, that he's brought back and given the send-off he deserves from a packed Aviva Stadium, because he is making this situation as easy as he possibly can under the circumstances. We'll talk to Kenny Cunningham, and Nathan Murphy will check in a couple of moments as well, get their initial thoughts on the situation. But Neil, a few other bits and bobs just to bring people up to date on elsewhere.
Yeah, Joe, so the Premier League is facing a £762 million financial penalty if the current season is not completed. Broadcasters would be entitled to that compensation for not being able to show games as part of their contract with the league. Talks between the PFA and the league ended last night with no agreement about a potential 30% pay cut for players. Meanwhile, Jamie Carragher is hit out at his old club Liverpool for furloughing non-playing members of their staff. The Premier League leaders announced yesterday that around 200 of their workers would be affected. Carragher says the decision will see the club lose goodwill and respect that had been earned by the compassion of their manager Jurgen Klopp. And finally, Joe, the International Rules Series will not be back this year. The GA and AFL both agreed to postpone the two-test series, which have been scheduled in Ireland for November 15th and 21st. Ireland were set to host Australia for the first time since 2015, with the return two-test series scheduled to be played down under in 2022. The second of the tests scheduled for this year on November 21st was due to be the centenary commemoration of Bloody Sunday.
Thanks, Neil. Back to Neil across the course of the afternoon with all the breaking news and otherwise. Meanwhile, Nathan Murphy standing by. How you doing?
Afternoon, Joe.
And former Republic of Ireland Kenny Cunningham also with us. Afternoon, Kenny.
Afternoon, chaps.
Your reaction when you heard the news and gave it a bit of thought?
Talking to me, Joe, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, look, I wasn't totally surprised. It's just ironically, I was speaking to somebody a few days previously, and off the back of the announcement that obviously the playoffs certainly wouldn't be played in that kind of June and probably July period, and conscious of the fact that Mick's contract was coming to an end. I mean, it was pretty obvious the decision had to be made. So I wasn't totally surprised. Have some sympathy for Mick. I must admit, I really felt for him. I listened to his interview with you there, Joe. Thought he handled himself really well, showed a lot of class, as you said. Was looking at the bigger picture rather than thinking just about himself. I thought he spoke really well. And I think he can be very proud of what he's achieved, even during the short period of time. I think we forget kind of what state we were in when he first came in, Joe. We were a really low ebb. We weren't playing well. Players really kind of lacking in confidence, any type of confidence, really. Bit of a disconnect you sense between the kind of management staff at the time and the players. So we had a bit of a job to do, making a very short period of time before that Gibraltar game. I remember he only had about 5 days preparation with the players. I think very quickly pulled the dressing room together. The players responded to him, and he got us up and running again and made us competitive in that group. So ultimately, he didn't have the opportunity to take us to the kind of promised land of the Euros next summer. But hopefully, we can still do that under Stephen. And if we do, Mick will have played a big part in that.
Yeah. So under the circumstances, you feel the correct decision?
Yeah, I've no problem. I've no problem with the decision. I must admit. Like I said, the only one maybe you could suggest, as I've said, who would kind of suffers a little bit is Mick. But in relation to Stephen, I'm sure he was itching to take the job up. Obviously, it was in ink in terms that he would be taking over the squad, but probably he clearly didn't envisage under these circumstances. But he must be absolutely of course he'll be delighted to be senior international manager. He knew it was coming, but to have the opportunity to lead the team into a playoff and potentially final with the view to take us to the finals next summer, he must be really looking forward to that. And I must admit, I'm excited. Just the story breaking there, I was listening to in terms of the staff additions that have been made as well. I think some great decisions have been made there. I think it was pretty obvious Keith was going to step up with Stephen. They seem to have worked very well together in the under-21s. Jim Crawford makes sense staying with the under-21s. He's been working with them for a period of time. John O'Shea stepping in. He's on the first steps of his coaching career. Great to get him involved. This is what we wanted to see happen. Where me personally, for the last number of years, getting our ex-players, those who show real kind of potential and skill sets in terms of coaching and managing, getting involved under the international scene, teams, and getting them involved. John will have that opportunity, and Damon, of course, who is doing some great work over in Celtic. He's got a lot of plaudits from Neil Lennon over there. The qualities he has obviously will help Stephen in the senior international stage. So I think that's really exciting, Joe. All of that news kind of breaking. So I'm actually really looking forward to it. On one hand, I'm kind of disappointed for Mick and really kind of feel for him, but at the same time looking forward, really excited the prospect of Stephen and the coaching team getting involved and seeing how they work with the players and how Stephen can move things on, because he certainly will do that. He'll put a stamp on things in terms how he works with the players, how he wants the team to play, the kind of football and style I'm sure will evolve over the period of time, although he needs to hit the ground running. He'll know that in terms of the playoff games coming up. So I actually think it's very exciting times coming down the road for us, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, Kenny, stay with us. Nathan, if we try and tease out the timeline and the FAI's logic here. 2 weeks ago on FAI TV, Niall Quinn was asked about the situation, because it was certainly brewing at that stage, and we didn't know the wording of Mick McCarthy's contract. We certainly knew Stephen Kenny was in from the 1st of August. But Niall Quinn said 2 weeks ago of the potential dilemma. He said, I don't think there's any point in trying to do something about that now. We're still in the position where we don't even know if we're going to the Euros or not. We'll know on the 10th of June. And he said, I would have thought that 10th of June would be a good time to start worrying about that particular instance. And what happened subsequently then is the June Slovakia date was postponed indefinitely. And so suddenly the FAI were faced with the possibility of Stephen Kenny's reign starting, according to his contract, before that playoff date. And that's where you feel things changed, because it would have been, it's far more difficult to turn around to Mick McCarthy if he has brought Ireland through to the Euros, if he's qualified via the Slovakia game and then the following game as well, be it against Bosnia or Northern Ireland. That's a tougher conversation to have with Mick McCarthy, to say, look, you know, you're not taking the team to the Euros even though you've brought them there. But once this playoff game moved from June beyond into August, into what is very much Stephen Kenny's tenure, then that is potentially an easier conversation to have. And it would seem that Mick McCarthy, and it's a credit to him, I would state as well, was open to facing the reality of that conversation.
Yeah, I think you're right on the timeline. Everything changed this week when that UEFA meeting was held and the playoffs were pushed back from June to September at the earliest. And the feeling seems to be that you're probably looking at next March for those playoffs, and there could well be Nations League and World Cup qualifiers in and around the next 6 months. The most difficult scenario for the FAI would have been if the playoff had gone ahead in June and the Republic of Ireland had qualified, with the Nations League and World Cup qualifiers certainly going to happen, and whether or not they would give Mick McCarthy the chance to stay on. Those contracts, it seems, were quite watertight, and once the decision was made to push back past the 1st of August, I think it was quite a straightforward decision. There was a time in the FAI when nothing was ever straightforward, so I think they do deserve credit for being swift and decisive and not letting this run on until June or July and everybody asking questions for months and months. They've got in, and because of Mick McCarthy's pragmatism, I think, and as you say, his class, this was quite a straightforward process, because while legally the FAI are clearly on very solid ground, Mick McCarthy's contract finishes at the end of July, Stephen Kenny starts at the beginning of August. Different individuals could react in a different way and could have made life difficult for the FAI if Mick McCarthy wanted to go down that route. But obviously he didn't, and he's accepting of this. And the whole world is in such a state of flux at the moment, and football is in such a state of flux, that nobody knows for certain when anything is going to return, as to when the Premier League, European football, or international football. So even if they had made a decision to, all right, we're going to stick with Mick McCarthy and the legal issues that they would have faced with that till September, I think they knew there was the strong possibility that these playoffs might be pushed back further on. So they've come in, they've made the decision, and probably the only decision that they had to make. It's highly unlikely that Stephen Kenny's first game in charge is going to be against Slovakia, but if it is, I think he feels that he would be ready for that challenge, even on short notice, as much as it wouldn't be an ideal scenario for anybody.
We'll have Dan McDonnell on later on. Reading his piece today in the Sunday Independent, he says it's understood the FAI ultimately concluded that in this new era for the association, it was important to go by the book. And he quotes a source saying, "What you want is to be straight and upfront with people," said the source. "It was a hard call, but the right call. From a reputational point of view, it wouldn't look well, as in wouldn't look well to start deviating from contracts." There's a text in, Kenny, from Owen in Dublin, which I think probably sums up the majority of the mood out there. He says, "Hi lads, Mick McCarthy is a fundamentally decent and generous man who has given a large part of his life to Irish football. He leaves owing Irish football nothing. The manner in which he departs is unfortunate, and it's a real pity his second stint didn't work out. His conduct during the process is a testament to the man, a true Irish footballing hero. Best of luck to Mick and TC. Also, though, looking forward to the Stephen Kenny revolution." And that, I think, about sums things up very nicely. On Nathan's point there, Kenny, increasingly we're hearing as well, you know, this qualifier against Slovakia, there's no great time pressure to get this done. I presume the FAI, I mean, maybe they have sources and contacts in UEFA. The hope would be, for sure, that Stephen Kenny's first game is not a playoff against Slovakia, that instead it's against the likes of Bulgaria in the Nations League, just to give him some time with the players.
Yeah, I think that's fair comment, Joe. Yeah, and I think it's a reasonable argument to make. I think most coaches would like their feet on their table as much time as possible with the players on the training pitch, particularly obviously a new manager, in terms of just getting his message across, even just the fundamentals of the day-to-day working with the players. You know, patterns of play. This is how I want to play. This is how I see it. This is what I expect of you. And just to go through all those processes, time is precious as an international manager in terms of time spent with the players. So you're absolutely right. And Nathan's suggesting potentially the playoff game pushed back to next March would kind of facilitate that. It's not just about the fact of having games to play, Joe. It's what's just as important, if not more important, it's just the time with the players, the time on the training pitch. Those morning and afternoon sessions, day in, day out, leading up to those games, for me, are actually more important than the actual games themselves when it comes to a new manager trying to kind of put all the pieces together. So I think you're probably right. That would be the ideal scenario. But if you flip it the other way, for any reason, potentially that playoff game against Bosnia was to be penciled in for September and October. I mean, it's a different type of challenge for a manager coming in. Probably the one Mick faced actually coming into the Gibraltar game, coming together 5 days before, introducing yourself to the players, hitting the ground running, getting onto the training pitch. I mean, that in itself, like, is a different type challenge for Stephen and the staff. But I'm sure the players would respond to that as well. So in a funny way, in an ideal scenario, yes, let's have the playoff game next March, have a longer run in and give Stephen and the staff time with the players. I think that's the ideal. But if it was to flip the other way, for me, it's a totally different challenge for Stephen and the staff. And sometimes players can really respond to that, coming together for a short period of time, knowing what's at stake, huge amount of pressure, tension, expectancy around the squad. Even that can bring the very best out in players as well. So either way, I'm looking forward to it. I think I like the text that you ran out from, was it from Owen there, in terms of, I don't think there's a negative. I don't think there'll be too much negativity around this decision. I don't think there's any reason for people to start moaning and complaining. You know, we've enough reasons to complain about a lot of different things at the moment. But in terms of this decision, I agree with you. It's swift. It's decisive. It's kind of, we're looking forward. There's a lot of things there to get excited about, and we haven't even spoken about the makeup of the squad in terms of some of the talent within the squad, particularly some of the emerging young talent which is coming through as well, Joe. So for me, there's a huge amount to get excited about going forward. Let's thank Mick for his efforts, putting us back where we are at the moment, and hand the baton on to Stephen to take us forward. So I'm really looking forward to it. I must admit, and from watching it from a distance.
Yeah, it gives clarity, and that's a major plus at the moment for sure. On the financial situation, Nathan, there's a parting bonus in the region of €1 million for Mick McCarthy. One of the stranger aspects as well, which may have to be confronted, is that he would be due a bonus should Ireland reach the Euros, and that's hanging over the FAI at the moment. It's not the current management's doing, but it's certainly an extra little legacy of this rather bizarre situation that we have found ourselves in from the off with the Kenny succession. And in fairness, no one could have predicted a global pandemic of this nature. But the bonus situation, should they reach the Euros, is still in the contract. So look, there's an argument, if we're sticking rigidly to the contracts, that might be another huge sum of money which has to be handed over. And this is an organisation which needs every cent it has.
I think there's two issues that still need to be cleared up. One of them is the bonus for whether Ireland actually qualify for the European Championship. Gary Doyle was reporting earlier on that there's potentially an agreement that Mick McCarthy and Stephen Kenny would split any potential bonus for the Euros. So that obviously needs to be ironed out over the next 48 hours. And the other one is around Robbie Keane's future. The FAI released that statement in the last half an hour confirming the backroom staff of the senior team and the underage team. And there's no mention at all of Robbie Keane in the statement. So everything we'd heard over the last 24 hours, even going back even further, was that Robbie Keane was unlikely to be part of the backroom setup under Stephen Kenny, that Stephen Kenny be in a position to pick his own. The fact that Damien Duff has come in would certainly suggest that Robbie Keane isn't going to be a part of it. It's whether there is some sort of other role for him, because obviously he has a longer term deal than Mick McCarthy and Terry Connor. He signed a 4-year deal. Perhaps the fact that he has that job at Middlesbrough to turn to now as well changes things, but it does look as though that Robbie Keane won't be part of it. And clarity is key here, because it does feel now as though we can properly start planning for the future. We now know the exact makeup of that management team, because there've been all sorts of speculation, even around the under-21s. So would Keith Andrews and Jim Crawford both step up? At one stage, Robbie Keane has been talked about as potentially moving to the 21s job. Another time, Damien Duff has been put in there as a potential under-21 manager. But now we know that Jim Crawford is going to lead the 21s with John O'Shea, who's it's very interesting to see the sort of succession planning that may be there, and getting those former players that I think, players from Kenny's era probably missed out on those opportunities initially where they should have been kept involved. That it's good to see some good young coaches like Kenny Cunningham, Damien Duff and Keith Andrews right in the mix. And it'll be fascinating to see that dynamic between Stephen Kenny, Keith Andrews and Damien Duff, because I think there's different personalities there, probably different views on football, and exactly, I suspect, what Stephen Kenny would want. People who challenge him, and everything you hear back from Celtic from Damien Duff, and his contract doesn't start till the 1st of August. Stephen Kenny and Keith Andrews start right away because Damien Duff's still with Celtic, and obviously they're trying to figure out what will happen. Dan MacDonald, who you'll chat to, was suggesting that maybe Duff was considering whether he'd return to Ireland either way. But I think having Damien Duff on the ticket adds a big amount of stardust as well.
Yeah, it does, absolutely. Just if people are trying to get their head around the dates of all the because it's a moving feast at the moment, movable feast at the moment. The Slovakia playoff, there is no date as of yet, although there seems increasingly to be murmurings that could be pushed to March. The Nations League with Bulgaria, that is down for September, and then World Cup qualifiers down to start in March of 2021. But again, there is room for manoeuvre there. I mean, thousands of fans travelling all over the world for sport will be one of the last practices of normal life to resume. So they may well be pushed slightly back. We have a Winter World Cup, bizarrely, obviously, in 2022. So there is that extra little bit of wiggle room, potentially. But that is the calendar as things stand.
The suggestion, Joe, around that is that the teams that are in the playoffs for the Nations League, they perhaps would be put into 5-team groups for World Cup qualifiers. So therefore, while the World Cup qualifiers start in March, for most teams, those in the Nations League playoff could just take part in the Nations League playoff during that international break next March. But as you say, 101 different things can happen between now and then. We have no idea when football is going to resume. And it does seem as though UEFA's attitude this week was that they want the domestic leagues to finish, that's going to be their priority above all else, get the Champions League done and then worry about what comes down the track. As you say, they do have a little bit of wiggle room, but you would hope that Stephen Kenny would get some time together. And like the Nations League, they're not friendlies. We know that they have consequences, both positive and negative. If it goes well, they're far-reaching in terms of seedings for a European Championship and for World Cup qualification. If they go badly, suddenly life becomes a whole lot more difficult because, as we know, qualifying for a World Cup, I always think it's quite straightforward for a Republic of Ireland manager. You have to qualify for a European Championship. It's a bonus if you qualify for a World Cup. So he needs positive results there to give himself every possible opportunity in terms of playoffs and everything else. So you can't take too many risks. But even this morning, we were trying to pick potential Stephen Kenny starting 11s for next March. And when you don't know how much football is going to be played. So, is it a positive that football has been pushed back for some of the young players like Troy Parrott, Adam Ida, Aaron Connolly? Or are they simply not going to get any football between now and then because of this pause that's been put on the Premier League? There's just so much up in the air.
Brian Kerry even made an interesting point to you and John Duggan yesterday, and it's that Stephen Kenny for a huge number of games has been with the 21s Irish games, so he hasn't probably seen a lot of them in the flesh, in person. He's working off videotape and he'll be using his instinct and his sense of things, and you just hope it's not the Slovakia game. I mean, they'll roll their sleeves up and get stuck into it regardless, but we're all very excited about the style of play that Stephen Kenny might bring to this Irish team. I don't expect it to be translatable overnight. I mean, how could you? What we're expecting and hoping for is probably going to be quite different to what we've seen over the previous couple of seasons. So you just hope it's a couple of games in September and then Slovakia to come in March. And that's all TBC at the moment. That's where we are.
Yeah, and as classy as Mick has been in his statement, I think people need to remember that before these playoffs were pushed back from March, people weren't giving this group much hope of going to Slovakia and another away game and qualifying because performances hadn't been good during this campaign. 2 victories against Gibraltar, 1 victory against Georgia. It started at a very low ebb when Martin O'Neill left, and there's no doubt that Mick McCarthy brought some of the buzz back, and he had to do it in the shadow of this never-ending crisis behind the scenes at the FAI, and he held his counsel brilliantly and again showed those qualities that he showed in that interview when he was stepping down, that he never let himself get involved in that. But the performances probably, again, didn't hit the standards that people want in terms of quality of football, in terms of being able to hold on to possession. It was a difficult gig. It was 2 years. He knew what the job was. Qualify. They need the money. Have the games in Dublin. Yeah. But I think there'll be an expectation quite quickly for Stephen Kenny, whether he likes it or not, and we've all been guilty of raising expectations, that there will be a difference in style of football and results quite quickly.
Yeah, final word to you, Kenny. I think we lost you there for a moment or two, but again, people are just tuning in. The backroom team has been confirmed. Jim Crawford will stay as the new under-21 boss. John O'Shea will come in alongside him, and then alongside Stephen Kenny at senior level. Keith Andrews moves up alongside him. Damien Duff joins the backroom side, and Alan Kelly as well, goalkeeping coach. So that backroom team that Kenny has assembled.
Yeah, well, obviously, I know the lads personally, so I'm delighted for them all. It's a great opportunity for them. I think you're kind of, that kind of management team is important. The dynamic has to work well between Stephen and the people around them. Not just so much in terms of how they think about the game. I think as a coach, it's different. I mean, as a coach, you're there to support the manager and to a large extent to carry out his wishes. And how kind of Nathan suggested, well, you need different voices in there, and people have a different opinion, only to an extent. You don't need too much of that. You can't have too much rub between the manager and the coach and staff in terms of like how they want to play or variations in terms of how they see things. As a support staff, you're there to do exactly that, support the manager and kind of implement his ideas to a certain extent. So I'm sure Stephen, he thinks a lot about the game, so I'm sure he's given a lot of thought to that, having spoken to the players. So hopefully the dynamic works well. Yeah. And like I said, Damien's very close to the game. I know he's kind of really thrown himself into the coaching side. He's really enjoying it, and the other lads as well. I think John, it's a great opportunity for him. He'll have a huge amount of respect from the young lads in the dressing room, and Keith as well. Keith is very smart as well. He's got a good eye for the game. So I think that's kind of very encouraging in terms of the amount of kind of coaching talent that we have now around the squad. I haven't mentioned Robbie to Joe, just to mention. I mean, if the suggestion is maybe not a position there for him, I don't think he should be too disheartened. I mean, Robbie's got an opportunity at club level now with Middlesbrough going forward. He seems very motivated in terms of forging a career for himself. So there's no reason sometime down the line there won't be an opportunity for Robbie maybe to come back, potentially even the senior international setup. He's certainly young enough. So maybe a case, hopefully we'll see Robbie involved again a little bit further down the road. So I don't think it's certainly a necessarily reflection of him if there is a position for him there at the moment. It's just Stephen has to make some big decisions in terms of the dynamic of the team that he wants around him. So he's made his decisions, which we have to respect. So, yeah, like I said, I'd just like to leave it on a positive note. I think I'm really excited by the news. I wish Mick well. I don't think he'll be struggling for opportunities when the football season gets up and running again. I think he's carried himself very well as our international manager, as we would have expected. But it's a kind of a new era now under Stephen going forward, and I'm hugely excited about it and looking forward to it.
Okay, good man. We'll leave it there. Kenny Cunningham, much appreciated. Nathan, thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Short
ad break. We're back reviewing the Sunday papers.
Off the ball on News Talk. Moncrief.
Mark says, I feel this is the time to get ready for COVID-29. What we learn now, what laws we pass, will help us for what could be a far more virulent disease, says Mark. COVID-29, is this going to be like the Fast and Furious movies? It's going to be like one every year. And we spend 6 months of every year in lockdown, then the other 6 months kind of re-emerging back, blinking into the light, pale as a sheet, and then we have to go back into the houses again. Oh, God, I hope not.
Moncrief.
With the all-new Dacia Duster.
Weekdays from 2 p.m. on News Talk.
In Germany, we don't simply wash our cars, we cleanse them. We don't merely hose down our driveways, we cleanse them clean.